Sorry, Kathy.
That's okay. Because yeah, we do these all across the country. So, and I think this is how we're moving towards this hybrid model.
Exactly. Where we're at. So this is our new world, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, as long as the host is willing to do that, then it'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jody, you just let me know when you want me to.
You can start. I think that people will come as they come. There's always a trickle in a little bit late, but yeah, start away, carry on.
Okay. All right. Well, hi everyone. Thank you for inviting me. Jody and I have known each other for years and years. I recognize a few of you. I am located myself in Lakefield, so I'm very familiar with your community care building. And I've worked with Osteoporosis Canada now for 11 years. So Jody asked me to come and share some information on your bone health and as it pertains to exercise. So I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. Can everybody see just the slide and not my notes?
Yeah, we can just see the slide.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So we're going to start with a little presentation, a little bit about how your bones remodel and things like that. And then I'm going to get into the exercise portion. Then we'll do questions at the end. I'm open for lots of questions and lots of discussion at the end then. All right, so bone is actually living tissue. We don't always think of it as it being alive, but it's constantly changing. And it's very similar to that of a bridge. So you can see, I'm going to get my laser pointer here. Very similar to a bridge. See the struts in the bridge here. This is our hip bone. And so we've got our trabecular bone on the outside and that cortical bone. Oh, sorry, no, the cortical bone is on the outside. That's that hard, dense one. And the trabecular bone or that honeycomb is in the middle. But it's very much, this is our hip, very much centered like a bridge. But it changes all the time. Our bones are constantly being repaired through a process called remodeling. So we have these osteoclasts. They take old bone away. Osteoblasts lay new bone down, and then that repair is complete. And this is a process that happens in our body continuously throughout our life cycle. But it does change depending on where we are in our life cycle. So we have reached our peak bone mass by the time we're in our 20s. So it's been said that osteoporosis is a pediatric disease that shows up later in life. So we know that for girls, we reach our height, our adult height, usually about the age of 18. For boys, it's a little later. They're looking at about 21. That's why on average, men are usually taller than women because they have a few more years to grow. Then, so back to these osteoclasts and I'm going to go back for a minute. So these two, in our younger ages, remember the grandkids are growing like crazy, right? These osteoblasts are being laid down like crazy and they're growing like weeds. And so that's what's happening in here. By the time we hit about age 30, they kind of work the same. New bone gets laid down, old bone gets taken away. But then I think it's just women here today. We go through menopause about the age of 50, right? Kind of in that age group. And that's when our estrogen levels start to drop. And so our bone builders, those builders, osteoblasts, they don't work. They're like, I've worked all the time, I'm going to retire now. So they don't work as hard. And the osteoclasts can take more bone away. So that's why we really start to see a drop in bone density kind of in that menopausal years. Men go through a change too, usually around the age of 65, that their testosterone levels start to drop. And so that's, and testosterone and estrogen are two hormones that are really friendly to bone and help bone stay healthy. And when they drop, so for men too, they noticed a decrease. So when we look at the inside of our bones, basically osteoporosis is a disease characterized by low bone mass and deterioration of bone tissue, and can lead to increased risk of fracture. And that's what we're worried about. You can live a very active, productive, healthy life living with osteoporosis. We just don't want you to fracture, because that's the symptom of the condition itself. So you can see here a picture of bone. But on the right-hand side, you can see how those linkages are just that much, not as strong, right? So they can fracture that much, much easier by a cough, a sneeze, a hug, turning the wrong way, bending down, fractures can happen. So I wanted to talk a little bit today. This is what Jody asked me to come talk to you about today. How does exercise really affect our bone health? We know that we want to have nutrition. We want to get our calcium as much through food as possible. So we're looking at dairy, cheese, milk, yogurt, but we're also looking at dark leafy green vegetables, salmon with the bones in, that sort of thing. So really making sure that you're spreading your calcium out throughout the day in all your different meals. Protein also is very important, and vitamin D. I'm hoping everybody on the call today is taking a vitamin D supplement, because it's a sunshine vitamin and we just don't get enough through the sun, especially like look at today. We're not seeing the sun. Yesterday we saw it, and hopefully tomorrow we will, but we don't see the sun enough. So those are some other lifestyle things that you can be doing to keep your bones healthy. But for today's topic, I want to really touch on how keeping active is going to, one, keep your bones healthy and hopefully prevent fractures. So we know the benefits of being physically active. We know that it's going to help improve our muscle strength and flexibility, improve our posture. We're going to talk about posture a lot today, better coordination and balance. And I'm quite sure the classes that Jody does, she has you practicing those balance exercises. It increases endurance, right, for everyday activities. By staying active and doing your exercise, it makes the everyday things that much easier. Hopefully will decrease some of the pain with exercise. Sometimes you think, oh, I don't want to go to exercise class. I'm a little sore or achy today, but you always feel so much better after your class. Again, improve ability to handle everyday activities, doing your housework, doing your laundry, if you're still gardening, if you're walking, making meals, groceries, those sorts of things. And overall, we know that being physically active is just going to improve the quality of your life. So the goals, when we look at it for bone health, it's really to promote muscle and bone strength. Basically, the muscles that you're continuing to keep healthy and keep strong, it's kind of like a little present that wraps up your bone, right? Because they're usually either attached to bone or around bone to keep them safe. We know that being physically active will help reduce falls that sometimes may result in a fracture, and reduce the risk of spinal fractures by moving correctly. And we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So we do want to give some exercise cautions. And I'm sure Jody's talked to you about this many, many times, that just making sure that, you check with your physician, is this the right program for me? Don't do exercises that cause pain. You know yourself, you're the only one that knows your body the best. So you don't want to go to the point of pain. There's a difference between pain and, oh my goodness, I used my muscles today. But knowing that difference, choosing a facilitator who has knows and associated with osteoporosis. And I know, Jody, you are in good hands there. She always probably gets you to warm up before you get going so that you don't have those injuries. And you're going to stretch during and after your exercise program. And choose an activity or program that you enjoy. Because if you enjoy it, you're going to keep going. That's usually the best. And schedule it into your day. And I know with community care, you've got your schedule and you kind of set it in your calendar, like on Wednesdays at noon, I'm going to do my exercises, and then we do our wellness Wednesdays after. So put it into your calendar. So something, if you are living with osteoporosis, something that you really need to know is your fracture risk. Are you at low, moderate, or high risk of fracturing? Because that's going to depend on the type of movements that you should be doing and to stay safe. So this is something I can help you with, or a physiotherapist or your doctor. When you have your bone mineral density test, you're going to have certain numbers and you're going to be plugged in. And actually, you could probably do this yourself. And Jody, I can maybe send you some different links after. We have, you can go online and kind of use the tool that the doctor actually uses. It's called CAROC or FRAX. And you plug your numbers in, what your bone mineral density test numbers were, your family history. Are you a smoker? Do you take maybe certain medications, glucocorticoids, maybe for, or prednisone would be under that medication. And you plug that in and it will spit out a number for you. And it's your fracture risk of what your fracture risk is in the next 10 years. So that's where it puts you into the category of low, moderate, or high. So if you're at low risk or moderate risk for fractures, you can probably do most activities safely. Do what you've been doing. If you're at moderate risk, you probably want to avoid those high impact or high risk activities. So for instance, some of those may be, I know there's not many men in the group, but there may be some men that are still playing some senior league hockey, right? So you're not going to be in a competitive league. You might still be skiing. We just are finishing up our winter. You may still be skiing. And I know there's still some downhill skiers in their 60s and 70s. And so, or skaters, maybe you're doing the senior skate at the local arena. So we always suggest that if you're in that moderate risk, it's not to say that you can't do it anymore. You want to modify. So if you're doing like a high impact, like I said, skating, maybe you go during the senior skate and not on the Sunday afternoon when it's like the family skate and the kids are zipping around playing tag with their hats, sort of thing. And then if you're at high risk of fracturing, or if you have already fractured, you definitely want to talk to somebody who is either bone fit trained or a physical therapist on how to do everyday activities safely. You want to avoid or minimize activities that involve lifting, like right from the floor, or rapid or repetitive movement, bending and twisting. So think about swinging a golf club. Your end of range, you're bending, you're twisting. The way I golf, I do it very repetitively because I have to swing a lot. So some of again, you can talk to a physical therapist and you can alter your swing so that your spine is not twisting so much. Or perhaps instead of playing 18 holes, you're 3 times a week, maybe you're playing 9 holes once or twice a week so that you're not putting so much strain on your spine. So we're going to talk now about the 4 different components of exercises that are really great for our bone health. And I'm quite sure all of these are put into your programs that you're participating in with community care. So we're going to start with balance exercises. So the whole idea is to prevent falls, right? Because usually the fractures happen from a fall. So if we can keep everybody on their feet, we can prevent a lot of fractures. So this, again, it just helps increase your ability to do everyday movements, how you're turning. So basically it's your base of support. You can see here they're shoulder width apart. So some balance exercises maybe that you can incorporate is, standing on one foot if you've got a chair with you, because again, you want to be making sure that you're not at risk of falling. Maybe it's heel to toe, walking heel to toe. I know I was part of a yoga group, and Jody, I don't know if you use yoga mats at all, but she had us walk on the edge of the yoga mat because it just puts it off a little bit unbalanced, right? So it's about changing that balance and changing kind of what you're walking on. The floors are easy in the buildings that we're on, but think about going for a walk outside, or if you go to a park, it's uneven, right? So that's a great way to challenge your balance. So then we're really looking at strength training. So again, incorporating strength training into our everyday exercise routines, and looking at doing this at least minimum 2 times a week. So this can be with exercise bands and weights, as I'm sure that's what you're using, and your own body weight as well. So some of the exercises that are great for that and easy, we call these our Fab 5. These are easy to do in class or at home. So doing a squat. So I know you're doing them in class, but think about at home. Every time that you get up and down off a chair, off your bed, maybe in the bathroom, in and off the toilet, think about going down slowly, using those leg muscles. You're not going to flop down into a chair. You want to go down slowly and see if you can stand up slowly again. That's how you incorporate, even though you're doing your exercises throughout the week, this is an easy way to add a little bit more in throughout your days. So this is a bow and arrow. So it's basically just taking a TheraBand, something like this. One arm's out straight and the other you're pulling back like you've got an arrow. And so you're working those upper arms and those back muscles. Those back muscles we want working for posture, and we'll touch on that a little bit as well. And then the last 3 that are simple to do at home, push-ups on the wall. You're working biceps, triceps, chest, and back. Heel raises, you can do this, on a step, whether you have an exercise step or just on a stair where you're holding onto a railing. And then again, using your TheraBand, this is a sash exercise. So you're holding one down by your hip and you're pulling up with the other hand. Again, using those back muscles. So sometimes I get questions, well, shouldn't I just be working on my legs if I want to be worried about not falling? Yes, you want strong legs and you want a strong core, but you also want a stronger upper body, because if you go to fall, let's say in your living room, and maybe there's a chair or a wall to hold on to, you will have the strength, hopefully, to either stop yourself or at least break your fall a little bit. If you have no upper body strength, you're not going to be able to catch yourself. So that's the importance of keeping that upper body strong, one of the importance. So aerobic activities. So this is basically getting our heart rate up, right? We want to look at least 150 minutes, but we can do these in small bouts, 10 minutes per day. You want to be working against that force of gravity. So this is your walking, your dancing, anything that you're pounding, using gravity. And why that gravity makes a difference is every time you walk and take a step, there's a small reverberation that goes up through your bones, and that's stimulating that bone to go, okay, I need to stay strong. So again, walking, dancing, climbing stairs are all really easy things that we can be adding into our day. So how hard should you be working? So the idea is we want to get our heart rate going, right? So moderate is when your heart beats faster and you can breathe a little harder and you can talk, but likely not sing. You're probably in that moderate area. If you're looking at your heart is beating so fast and that you can't even talk or sing during these activities, that's when you notice that you're at a very vigorous intensity. Okay, but there's something here. So if you are at high risk of fracture, so remember we talked about our levels, low, medium, moderate, and high. If you are at high level of fracturing, you want to probably stick to a more moderate level of intensity, just so that you don't cause more injury. So now let's talk a little bit about posture. So again, we have been talking about those upper body exercises. So posture training is really important to keep our body in line as much as possible. So we can be doing this while we're sitting on our chair here. We can kind of wiggle around and straighten up, but we want to try and have good posture. If we're standing or sitting, our ears are over our shoulders, shoulders over our hips, hips over knees, knees over ankles, so that we're not all slouched in our chair, which we can be sometimes, right? So you want to bring back those shoulders. Pretend that you're kind of a little bird and your shoulders are wings, and you're just going to move them back and forth till they kind of sit nicely. You want to pretend that you have a beautiful necklace on and you want to lift up that breastbone and kind of show it off a little bit. And so that's a nice way to sit. And sometimes that's hard. This itself can be an exercise because sometimes we don't have the strength to hold our body up, and that's why we get all slouchy. So that's why it's important to keep those back muscles strong and that core strong so that we can be sitting and standing up nice and tall. For many people, they have a curve in their upper back and through here. And so that's, you'll see that. And sometimes that's called the kyphosis. And what has happened is when we don't have this nice tall posture, fractures can happen just by poor posture. So think of your spine as children's building blocks, that they sit on top of each other, right? Those are your vertebrae. And if one of the vertebrae fractures or collapses, it goes from a square to a triangle. And so if you have a whole bunch of those collapsing here, that's what happens with this kyphosis or rounding of the back. It's actually spinal fractures. 2/3 of spinal fractures actually go unnoticed, that people think, oh, I've pulled a muscle and it'll go away, and they don't even realize that fractures may be happening. So it's really important to know if you're losing height. That's usually one of the first signs. People have said to me, well, I've noticed my pants, I'll hem them up and my slacks, then they're longer again. I've heard that. Or if I'm wearing a skirt, if the front of the skirt is longer than the back, there may be something going on in your back. So we want to definitely be practicing posture exercises every day. So again, we kind of did this exercise. So, you know, sitting up tall or standing up tall, bringing those shoulders back, drawing in that belly button, keeping your eyes, your gaze forward. Find as we get older, we look down a lot because we're worried about what we might trip on. Our head is about 8 to 10 pounds. So it's the weight of a bowling ball. So all of a sudden you've got this bowling ball sitting on top of your spine, and that puts a lot of weight forward and it makes you off balance. So instead of bending down with your whole head, I want you to try and keep your chin up, and I want you to have your eyes gaze down as opposed to your whole head, because your brain will tell you, I've listened to a physiotherapist many, many times share this, your brain will tell you if you gaze a couple feet ahead of you, what's there, and your foot will lift up over it. Or you can practice that too. Jody, a fun exercise is, you know, maybe skipping ropes down in a circle, and you actually have to practice stepping over things, and then things can get higher so that you're practicing lifting up your feet, because sometimes we get into the habit of shuffling our feet, right? So when you're doing that, you're practicing looking up and just gazing forward so that you're not bringing your head forward and putting yourself off balance. So posture is really important. Other simple exercises just to recheck your posture throughout the day is just bringing your hands, if you're standing up, bringing your hands in behind your back. It will just kind of hold your posture. Maybe if you're standing in line at the grocery store, standing with your hands behind you, it will set your posture back again. And we want to make sure that we stay flexible. We know that we can become like stiff if we stop moving. And that's where we might develop that slouch or that stoop posture, just because we don't have the flexibility maybe in through our pecs here. Everything we do in a day is in front of us. We're all curled in. So making sure that we're stretching out those pecs so those shoulders come back so that we're not all stooped forward. So some really great ways to be more flexible. One is just, love this one, is just Shavasana. Is basically, and I'll show you a picture in the next slide, is just lying either on your bed or if you're able to get on the floor, taking that pressure off your back, off your spine, and letting relax. Maybe just adding longer strides when you walk, maybe add a lunge, doing some calf muscle stretches. Basically, any stretching exercise will help regain flexibility. So, and you'll notice a big difference. If you start practicing some stretching throughout, you'll notice quicker improvement than some of the other areas that we've talked about with flexibility. So this is Shavasana. This is a beautiful pose that you're just lying on the floor. So I want to mention this. So if you lie on the floor, because some of us naturally have a curve in our spine, if you lie on the floor without a pillow on your head and your head's really bent back, I want you to put a pillow under so that your spine stays in neutral position, so that you still kind of have that, pretend that you've got a fist or a apple that sits right under your chin. So instead of way back like this, you want it to be able to sit. So if when you lie down, and even at bedtime, and your chin is really jutted up here, I want you to put a little pillow under there so that your spine stays in line. Okay. So what about yoga and Pilates? Wonderful exercises, but if you are living with osteoporosis and if you know that your spine is not in great shape, there are some poses that you might want to modify. The poses, so basically you don't want to be constantly bending forward. So downward dog may be a little bit more challenging. So you're going to maybe use a chair. You don't want to do a full spinal twist. There's lots of ways to modify that. So if you're lying on the floor, and instead of dropping your knees all the way to one side, put your mat up against a wall and only drop them halfway down so that your hips stay on the ground. Some other poses when you're doing a bridge pose, so you're laying down on your mat and feet, heels are tucked up towards your bottom and you lift your core. In yoga, you'll hear a lot, come down one vertebrae at a time. I'm going to say absolutely not. If you're living with osteoporosis or spinal issues, you want to come down all together. So it's always about keeping that spine in line as much as possible. We've got we have a great video webinar on our website. If you do practice yoga and if you are living with osteoporosis, I highly recommend you to watch this because it will show you many poses, the do's and don'ts of what you need to be doing during your yoga practice. And again, that relates to Pilates as well. So again, it's great for balance and flexibility, but you want to make sure that you're not doing a lot of bending forward, you're not flexing that spine, you're not doing a lot of twisting. I know I have one gal in my in a support group, and she always says nose and toes. So wherever your nose is pointed, your toes should be pointed in the same direction. so you're not twisting. So I'll talk a little bit about that with spine sparing strategies. So bending and lifting with the neutral spine. So here she's doing a hip hinge. You can see that she's bending at her hips. Her bottom is being pushed out so that her back stays in line as much as possible. So a hip hinge can be used when you're putting, your plates or in the bottom rack of the dishwasher, getting laundry in and out of the washing machine or dryer, making sure that you're hip hinging instead of rounding your back. So you're pushing those hips back, pushing that bottom back to keep that spine in line. Good lifting techniques, again, lifting with your legs, not your back. And paying attention again when you're moving. So this is again when I'm going to mention where your toes are pointed, your nose should be pointed as well. So this might come into play perhaps when you're vacuuming. Oh, that's the next slide here. When you're vacuuming, instead of twisting to try and get into that corner, you're just going to step and turn. If you're wearing a Fitbit watch and you're counting your steps, you just get a lot more steps. You're always going to step and turn instead of doing a big reach. Avoid those quick turns, like quickly answering the phone. Again, trying as much as possible to keep your spine in line as much as possible. Avoid twisting too far while sitting or turning to reach something behind you. Again, it's all about moving the whole body. Getting up from a chair, for instance, instead of trying to get up from a chair way at the back, slide yourself forward so that you're on the edge of the chair, and then use those strong leg muscles to get yourself up is much easier as well. So again, we're doing lots of bending here. This individual's putting on their shoe. But avoid bending over and over, like doing sit-ups. You don't want to do a full sit-up. That's a lot of pressure on your spine. So it might be just, if you're doing any core exercises, it could be just lying on the floor. Hands are never clenched behind your head, because then you'll have a tendency to really reef on your neck. Fingers are loose and they just go lightly behind your ears, and you pretend that you have a string from your nose attached to the ceiling if you're laying down, and you're just going to lift your nose up, and you will feel that core. And I'm sure Jody has lots of great exercises that you're doing for your core that you're not bending your spine. Things, for instance, like putting on your shoes. Instead of bending all the way down, you can have a chair maybe at your front door where your shoes are. Bring your foot up on your other leg and put your foot on. You could rest your shoe on a little bench or a step to put it on, or get a long shoehorn from the dollar store, right? Easy things. Again, avoiding that constant bending of the spine, where fractures can easily happen in everyday activities. And I do find a lot of people, when they're doing their exercise classes, they're getting cues and reminders from the instructors, be careful on this. A lot of injuries happen when you're doing everyday activities that you've been doing for 50 years, your laundry, sweeping the floor, vacuuming, things like that. So taking those principles that you've learned in exercise class and transferring them to your everyday activities. So holding and lifting heavy objects, you want to make sure that they're close into your body, that you're not lifting them too far away. Think about, and two, if you have issues with your bone density in your spine, you don't want to lift a lot of heavy weight up over your head, because that puts a lot of pressure onto your spine that may cause a fracture. So think about your kitchen. How are things set up in your kitchen? Do you have, a lot heavy things up higher, or it's okay to have pots and pans or maybe casserole dishes at counter height instead of lower down, because a lot of us will have our pots and pans and our casserole dishes either really far down that you have to bend over, and some of them can be heavy, It's okay to arrange them that, you know, maybe you've got that pot that you use all the time, or that casserole dish. It's allowed to sit beside your plates that are at more waist height or counter height, or in your top cupboards, but on the first shelf, so that you're not doing a lot of heavy lifting. You know, we've got Easter coming up, and maybe you've got these beautiful bowls on the very top shelves because you don't use them very often. Those are harder to come down. So maybe you ask somebody to bring those down. Maybe when we're switching over our clothes in our closet, some people will switch things around and put, you know, maybe we're gonna, well, not today, we still need our winter sweaters, but putting heavier sweaters up higher in the closet. Ask maybe somebody to bring those down for you when you switch over to some of your summer clothes. So on our website, we have an awesome booklet that you can download that will kind of talk about everything that I talked about today, how to incorporate safe exercises into your exercise routine, that sort of thing. We've got lots of videos and exercise. And Jody, I think what I'll do is I will put a bunch of links in an email. And then if people want that, you're welcome to share that with them.
Cathy, usually I send this out as like I usually send it.
Oh, okay.
So if you're able to send me the PowerPoint, that would be fantastic, so I can send to others.
Okay, yeah, no, for sure, I can do that. Because yeah, there's so much information on our website. I'm going to stop my share now.
I'll stop recording too, so people can ask questions privately.
Great, thank you.